Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
He comes back, and what we're talking about, mid-August at that point, and then he gets a couple more starts and they're ready for the postseason. So right now, I would say probably not an issue long-term. You know, obviously change the lines of what we're going to see today. I haven't seen the lines reopen, at least on the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're locked right now. So not an issue right now. As long as he comes back and he still has that plant leg and he's still strong with that, probably no worries for the Brewers right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. Let me say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though Hector Staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average like 3 runs a game, but somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. Like, how does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we get ready for NFL Preseason Week 1. We've got a full preview coming up. Adam Kaplan, our SportsGrid insider, makes his return to the show. That's coming up in about 60 minutes from now. In addition, Cody Rourke, who covers the Denver Broncos, has his boots on the ground there, covering them in Colorado. We'll have the latest on the Broncos season. Also, Tom Vecchio breaks down some Major League Baseball, and Matt Latufsky does the same as well. So stick around for the entire show. We got a fun one for you today and lots to cover. So let's get started. And we'll start with legislation here in the United States surrounding being able to deduct gambling losses at the end of the calendar year, which would include 2025. The former vice president of the United States, Mike Pence, says that he is going to oppose this idea that Congress right now could basically go back and change what they already said they were going to do. If you're confused, I'll explain. As of right now, it appears several states in the United States would not like you to be able to deduct 100% of your tax losses. Now, of course, there was some fight with that, trying to bring it back. But Pence says that the Advancing American Freedom, which is who he supports, is actively opposing efforts in Congress to restore that 100 tax deduction for gambling losses. He says that the tax code, the unproductive behavior of sports gambling, and ultimately funneling billions into the government coffers while harming working families. Of course, the President of the United States, under the One Big Beautiful Act, the OBBBA, reduced the deduction to 90%. Stay tuned on this one. It seems like the President of the United States and the former President of the United States have a little bit of a difference of opinion. We'll find out soon. Meanwhile, the National Football League and the Red Zone is headed over to ESPN. ESPN bought the Red Zone name from the National Football League. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the National Football League, also said yesterday that he thinks it's possible that college football and other sports will also incorporate the Red Zone. Now, keep in mind, Major League Baseball does have their own version of it on MLB Network, but college football would certainly be a completely new and different idea. We'll see if Goodell is correct in his assessment with college football. Obviously, nothing coming this season. The season's just a few weeks away. All right, now let's get to the latest in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, which is the chase for 1,000 hits. It came and it went. He got it. He hit a home run. The Cardinals rally for a comeback over the Dodgers 5-3. But Ohtani homered, and he also struck out 8 in just 4 innings. And he got his 1,000. Ohtani probably not going to get 3,000 hits in the big leagues, considering he started his big league career late, already on track to be a potential Hall of Famer. And by the way, 4 innings pitched is pretty impressive, considering that Ohtani's only gone 2 or 3 in most of his starts. Here's the assessment from the manager of the Dodgers, Dave Roberts.
Shohei was really good today. The pitching, fastball, command, fantastic. Really impressive. Figured he would, come back and really throw the baseball well today, which he did. And then offensively, the walk, the homer, just really looked good. So, unfortunately, you got to play defense, and you got to, have other guys, put together at bats and score runs too. But, as far as Shohei today, really good.
You have a level of frustration the way the second half has started off?
Yeah, we just haven't synced up. I think the pitching has been really good. And we just can't get untracked, offensively. But having Max back, I think, is certainly helpful. But yeah, it's kind of we're not playing great. Expect to get better. But yeah, to start the second half, definitely not playing our best baseball.
The Giants haven't played great baseball since they made the trade for Rafael Devers, but they're hanging around in the playoff race. Dominic Smith had a 2-run double in the 9th inning, and the Giants end up beating the Pirates by a final of 4-2. Of course, Dom's moved around the league quite a bit. Here's Bob Melvin after the game on the win.
Well, we talk about playing a little bit like we did earlier in the year, and that's the way we did early in the year off the good relievers, quality at bats. I mean, obviously Dom's was huge. Bailey coming off the bench to get 2 hits, driving runs, and that's something that's obviously is a good recipe for us. So showed up again today. It's been lacking for a little while. Hopefully it continues.
What's changed with Bailey, do you think, at the plate?
I think he's just gotten some hits and feels more comfortable. I think you get to this point in time of the year, and if you're chasing numbers and, it's just play now. He expect to have better offensive numbers this year. His catching has gotten extreme as the year has gone along as far as the framing numbers and so forth. But the offensive numbers aren't where they are. But right now, he's just going up there taking good at-bats. He's had some success recently, and I think he's playing off that.
So much of the Chicago Cubs' success has been off the bats of course, Pete Crow Armstrong and Kyle Tucker. But Seiya Suzuki's had just as good a season as these guys, too. 27th home run last night. Wow. Cubs beat the Reds. Final score 6-1. Craig Counsell after the game happy the bats came alive in the division matchup.
I mean, we just played a complete game. I think that's what sticks out. Cade was awesome. Just the strikes throwing ability. I think I saw 56 strikes and 67 pitches. That's top end stuff and it's quality stuff. And that's a good formula for success. I thought Kittredge today was great. I mean, he goes right back out there after a tough outing yesterday and delivers a perfect inning. And then the offense, we hit some homers today, which we that's good. That's a good thing to hit some homers. And we just in general played good offense against a tough starting pitcher, an all-star starting pitcher.
You were able to accomplish 2 things. You get Portland throws a great game for you, and you were able to continue to watch his innings.
Yeah, that's a credit to him of just like getting us 17 outs and under 70 pitches or however many he threw. That is a credit to the strike throwing. He set the bullpen up. Not only did he pitch great, but I thought he set the bullpen up to have a lot of success.
Let's get to the Cleveland Guardians, who upend the New York Mets 4-1. Gavin Williams had a no-hitter in this game. In fact, 8 1/3 until Juan Soto ended up breaking it up by hitting a home run. Guardians win 4-1. Soto said after he wasn't thinking about the no-hitter, just getting a hit.
Juan, when you come up in that spot in the 9th inning, how much are you thinking about trying to break up the no-hitter versus just your normal approach at the plate?
I wasn't thinking about a no-hitter or anything. I'm just working on my swing, so we keep trying to do the same thing we've been doing since the first inning, and I just came through.
Why do you think overall, with the type of players that you guys have in this room, the offense just hasn't been consistent from the start of the season?
I really don't know. What is going on. But definitely we have the talent, and the guys are capable to do damage here, so I think one day it's going to turn around.
Mendoza was talking about the fact that it feels like the in-game adjustments, especially over the last few weeks, haven't quite been there as a group. Do you agree with that assessment, and why do you think that is?
For me, I would say we just when we go through the game, we just get better and better. I think we just got to be a little bit better coming out of the get-go right away, being aggressive, and play the 9 innings,
Yankees finally get off the schneid. They get a win. David Bednar, a 5-out save, 5 strikeouts, 42 pitches. Man, they needed everything there. Yankees defeat the Blue Jays. Offense goes nuts in Colorado. 3 games, 60 runs, 20-1 yesterday. Marlins get a big win yesterday as well. Graham Pauley, Roberto Hernandez hit solo home runs as they beat the Astros 6-4. All right, NFL preseason game begins tonight. Bengals and Eagles, Raiders and Seahawks.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Well, the NFL preseason certainly gets underway in a big way tonight. Several games today, and then the rest of the weekend. Let's bring in Matt Latowski from Sporting News. And, Matt, this is a fun time of the year because, again, not just the Hall of Fame game where we tune it in and realize, oh, my gosh, what are we doing? Some actual players, it feels like, on some different teams playing in the preseason. And, certainly looking forward to watching some of this tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got some interesting rookies debuting. That's always fun to see, especially for the fantasy football owners to get overly excited and overreact when a guy has one good run or one big catch. And we got a couple, some starters that are playing kind of surprisingly, I think, with the Bengals especially. That's going to be interesting and fun to watch. I mean, if they don't play well that all of a sudden isn't a cause for concern. You certainly expect them to play well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting night. Certainly extend all throughout the weekend as we get games here every day for the next few days. So, for NFL preseason junkies, if they do in fact exist, and I know they exist after working in this business as long as I have, this is your time to shine.
Yeah, definitely so. And look, there's no rhyme or reason for a lot of the outcomes here, but generally speaking, I find this first game we're going to talk about interesting because the Ravens are usually amazing in the preseason. They usually win and they usually cover, and I don't recall them getting this many points in a preseason game in a while. Maybe I'm missing something here, but the Colts are 5.5-point favorites, and I suppose maybe the reason why is we get to see sort of their two starting quarterbacks, but I don't know, Matt, that 2 even equals 1 in this case, but that's the deal tonight. Colts minus 5.5 against the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old saying, right? If you have two, you have none. And we know the Colts plan, what they're going to do with Richardson and Jones. And I guess the odds makers look at that and say, well, that's two starters per se that are going to play 3/4 of the game or at least half the game. So therefore that gives them the edge. And I suppose there's logic to that, but I think, given the other various limitations of that team and maybe of those specific quarterbacks, I don't know if I'd go that far because, like you said, the Ravens do. I mean, it is documented. It is a thing. I think they prepare well for preseason games. I think whether it's the, starters just playing a series or the backup, second, third strings playing, the vast majority of the game, I think they prepare well and they do play well. So, yeah, that's a curious line to say the least. And like I said, I think it's basically predicated on these quote unquote two starters quarterbacks playing for the Colts, but I'm not even sure what that means at this point.
Richardson is the favorite to be the starter on FanDuel. He's minus 350 and Daniel Jones is plus 255. And if all doesn't go well for both, maybe week 16 we see Riley Leonard. I mean, who knows? He's 80-1. I mean, I don't know. I could see this going the other way, Matt. I'm not completely convinced that Jones can't win the job.
No, I'm not at all either. I mean, and especially I think when you look at Richardson's injury history, that has to be factored in too. Where could that play into thing if he gets a little dinged, and that allows Jones to sort of pass him? But no, absolutely. I mean, I think based on what they told us their plan is for these first two games, alternating the quarterbacks, I think that tells us it's wide open. Whereas I think most pundits looked at it and said, well, Richardson, is definitely the clear favorite, and it would take him playing really poorly or Jones playing really well to pass him. I think it's a lot closer than that. So yeah, I think it's absolutely much more of a coin toss than those odds would indicate.
The other game tonight, 7:30 Eastern, Bengals and Eagles. We know the Eagles, who played so late into the season, are going to stretch out their starters and not play them until the bitter end if they even have to. And I guess that's why Cincinnati is 5.5-point favorite tonight. Total is 37.5. Although Zach Taylor gave an update on who's playing and who's not the other day, and it sounded like so many players on their team sitting on defense. Total 37.5 in this game. Again, I know we're flipping coins here, Matt, so flip yours here on this one.
Yeah, I just think, I think he said the offense is going to play at least a series, which I think is very interesting, not something they've done in the past. And of course, they're notorious for getting off to slow starts in the regular season. They've always had a lot of injuries and contract issues. I mean, they still have contract issues right now on the defensive side of the ball, but offensively, the past few years, I think they look at that and think that has slowed down getting out of the gates in the regular season, and they want to try to do something different here. So I do think that gives them that advantage. But, look, everyone's been talking about their defense all offseason. They're going to score a lot of points. They're going to give up a lot of points. And if you go into even a preseason game against backups and you're playing your backups on a defense that already isn't considered to be very good, we could see points. I know that the sort of general consensus is bet the unders in preseason games because they can just get so ugly and you never know what you're going to see. But I actually think this is a game where we could see some points, and it could be kind of a weirdly fun game because I don't think people really know what to expect from certainly from the Eagles with who they're playing and how that distribution is going to be. But with that Bengals defense, I think could get really wild.
Yeah, and to your point, the Bengals have started off poorly the last several years and have struggled to the finish line, especially the last 2 years, 1-3, and then finishing 9-8. You see there a few years ago, 2-2, and then ended up going 12-4 at the end of the season. All right, the final game of the night. Let's get a preview of this one. The Pete Carroll era gets started in Seattle against his own team. Okay, fair enough. Raiders minus 4.5 against the Seahawks, total 37.5. And I'm guessing that's what represents that line right there, Matt, is the fact that Pete Carroll wants to go in and he's going to want to win this game too. But preseason games and laying points is just doesn't seem like a winning proposition to me. Do you think that he'll, basically play this one to the end?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he wants to get the team off to a good start. I mean, normally don't talk about revenge games in week 1 of the preseason, but we got a little bit of one here, and it should be fun. I think people are most curious about seeing Ashton Genty. I think Jalen Milroe on the other side is going to be very interesting to watch too. See how many snaps he gets, see what they allow him to do. So yeah, I think this is 2 pretty even teams on paper. When they're all playing their starters. Again, it's preseason. Who knows? It gets weird. I think that's a lot of points to lay, like you implied there, for me to feel comfortable with that. But I do think if one team has a little more incentive and maybe a little bit more of an edge, it is the Raiders, given all the newcomers to that team and with the coaching staff. So that, but again, because of some of those rookies who I think are pretty dynamic players, that one could be a fun one to watch if people want to stay up late and take in some preseason football.
Yeah, Genty in particular, I am interested in. I should have mentioned Geno Smith and his revenge game too, but I mean, how long is he going to be in this game to have a revenge game? I don't know. 3,600 passing yards is Geno Smith's total on FanDuel this season. We'll see if he eclipsed that. Matt, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We'll catch up again next week.
All right, thank you.
The Jerry Jones saga with the Cowboys and Mike Parsons continues. How's the latest?
We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
It's becoming just harder in general to do business from a money standpoint in general, let alone the competition. So yeah, Betfred closing up shop will be gone by tomorrow. We'll see if any sportsbook fills this void. It'll mean that there's a license up for grabs in Pennsylvania, which is one of the biggest states for sports betting and is home to a lot of other operators. At this point, we're getting to a time when no one's rushing into the market.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I'm going to say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on...
What would a day of NewsWire be without hearing from Jerry Jones? We'll hear from him, Travis Kelce, and Aaron Rodgers as we go around training camps. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, let's get the latest update with the Micah Parsons holdout contract situation. Not a day goes by that Jerry Jones isn't afraid to talk about this. That's what we like about Jerry, okay? So here's the latest one. Apparently, Jerry Jones thought that he had a deal done with Micah Parsons. Not a pen, not a sheet of paper, not a DocuSign. A handshake and a look in the eye. That's how we thought the deal got done. Here's Jerry on the latest with the Parsons contract saga.
I bought the Dallas Cowboys with a handshake. Took about 30 seconds, and I gave the number, shook hands. The details we worked out later. As a matter of fact, one of the details involved a lot of money, and we had to flip a coin over that. But the fundamental, I'm buying, and you're going to sell it to me for that range, that's done. And those are done with eye contact and handshake.
So was there...
So just so you understand why the way that I communicate with people that I negotiate with. So but let's leave it at that. There is no question that in the case of a player contract, you have to have it in writing. All parties do. We have a contract in writing, yet we're still talking about renegotiating it. So much for that.
So what's the sticking point for you right now at this point?
Again, there are no point. There's points of varying degrees of influencing, not having something done, but nothing that I would say is out of the ordinary.
All right, so there's the latest from Jerry. Got a feeling this gets done in the next couple of weeks. Too much discussion about it without. All right, so now we get to a couple of Hall of Famers. That is Travis Kelce. Is this the final season of Kelce in Kansas City? Some are making the assumption that it is. But Kelce is back for yet another year after a disappointing season last year, and I think even in the Super Bowl, Kelce would have hoped for a better outcome, of course. Here he is on the team's expectations this coming season, where it must mean at the end a trophy is involved.
Trying to win Super Bowls, man. It's the only way you get there, and I think it starts in the off season and kind of when you get out here to St. Joe and you get in training camp, man. It really signifies like coming together, the chemistry, the culture that you need to have to keep getting better every single day, every single week throughout the year, and hopefully playing your best football by December, January, and February. Yeah, I mean, we got a long way to go. It's still, I think, close to a month until our first game, our first real game. We got some time to kind of work our techniques and test it out on some other teams here in the preseason. But right now, it's just the work phase, man. I'm not really kind of evaluating anything. We're all trying to just get right, get into football shape, and get mentally tough. No, man, just once you're here, it's all about football, man. You eat, breathe, and sleep football, and you try and be there for the guys next to you, the new guys that are coming in, try and get them acclimated. And it really hasn't changed since I've been here, man. Coach Reed does a great job of putting a plan in place, putting a regimen in place to where it gives you a chance to succeed, and it gives you a chance to really get in there and find out what you're made of.
One thing that has significantly changed, not just with the Chiefs, but with other teams too, is how the clubs take it more seriously during these, these scrimmages that they have, as opposed to the actual preseason games. And that definitely is the case, according to future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, now with the Steelers, who says that teams generally accomplish a lot more in these planned scrimmages than they do when they play at night in the preseason games.
You mentioned that preseason football isn't real football. Are you able to kind of supplement that with the joint practices? Is that more of a benefit than preseason football?
Yes, I believe so for the first team.
Because
teams are, especially most of the joint practices, I would say you're not going to play that team in the regular season, so they're less worried about showing things that they want to work on. And even though there usually are cameras there and it's filmed, they're less skittish about running the stuff they've been running all camp that they're going to try and do in the regular season against another team that you're not going to play in the regular season. So I found those beneficial. As long as there's not a lot of fights, I think they're a good work day for the first team.
We'll see what happens in these NFL preseason games and who plays, but Sean McDermott this morning did make the announcement that this weekend Josh Allen will not play in their first NFL preseason game. McDermott notoriously playing a lot of his guys at the end of seasons and preseasons, but Allen will not be part of the game plan, at least in preseason game number 1. Coming up next, Tom Vecchio joins us from Pro Baseball Today. We break down the latest in the game, including a near no-hitter for a pitcher on the Guardians last night. Don't go away.
We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
It's becoming just harder in general to do business from a money standpoint in general, let alone the competition. So yeah, Betfred closing up shop will be gone by tomorrow. We'll see if any sportsbook fills this void. It'll mean that there's a license up for grabs in Pennsylvania, which is one of the biggest states for sports betting and is home to a lot of other operators. At this point, we're getting to a time when no one's rushing into the market.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I'm going to say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Tom Vecchio is with us. Get ready to catch Tom's show, Pro Baseball Today, each and every Sunday here on SportsGrid. Of course, as we get closer to the football season, Tom's getting ready for that too. Got to do two sports here. But Tom, let's get to the latest in Major League Baseball, and really an incredible performance last night from Gavin Williams. And let's give credit to the Guardians as they hang around in this thing. A near no-hitter. Juan Soto ended up breaking it up. And Tom, this is what we've been waiting for Gavin Williams for years, a start like this. Every year going into the year, we're like, okay, is this the season for Gavin Williams? Is this the season? Guardians are a pitching factory. They get the job done last night. And, still very much in the mix, I guess, for the playoffs, too. And on the flip side, what are the Mets doing?
Right, certainly a great performance from him. We've always been waiting for these breakouts from their pitchers, whether it was Williams, whether it's Tanner Bybee, whatever it might be. Really interesting deadline from Cleveland where they trade away Shane Bieber, who, you could use him at this point when you're 1.5 games back. I know he's not fully back from his rehab starts, but they also decided to keep Stephen Kwan. So a little bit all over the place, but they are making a push and they are going to cause teams trouble, even if they do fall a few games behind. And then the Mets, really concerning signs from them. It's great to see them bolster the bullpen, but they also didn't improve their lineup that much. They didn't improve the starting pitching. And if the starting pitching isn't good enough to get you to that bullpen and or your team can't put up their runs, you're always going to be playing from behind, and then having those high leverage bullpen arms is almost wasted because if you're down 4-1, then they have no reason to come in.
I think right now, the way that I look at the Mets, by the way, on the flip side here, their win total, like the Yankees, has shot down from the 90s now this morning at 89.5 over on FanDuel. Their odds to win the NL East, kind of the same as to where they were with Philly, but we've seen a drop off for them to win the pennant, Tom, at 8-1. It used to be 4 or 5 to win the World Series. It was 10 or 11. Now it's 12 or 14-1. Can the Mets get this all pulled together at the end?
At this point, I would have to say no. That's my gut reaction, and just simply getting out of the NL. Because if at this point, if we assume they don't win the NL East, they're going to be a wild card. Padres potentially in a wild card, either the Brewers or the Cubs. And we could say right now that the Brewers have a better starting pitching staff if you can throw out Peralta, Mizorowski if he's back, and Woodruff. Those three going in a 3-game series is pretty darn good. So the Mets, simply just to get to the NLCS, the path that they have to take going through the Padres, the Brewers, the Cubs, the Phillies, just to play the Dodgers, whatever it is, that does not look super easy when your pitching staff is behind everyone else and your lineup is not hitting right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Detroit's got to be worried a little bit. They have not played their best baseball in the second half, but they built such a nice lead in the first half that it really hasn't mattered. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Twins. As Detroit, their offense has certainly struggled, and that's kind of been the case all season long. 5-4 the final yesterday. And Tom, as we move forward and take a look at the American League Central, I mean, look, the Guardians would certainly need to pull off a massive run down the stretch. I do believe they have one series left against Detroit, so that would help. Kansas City to me, 57 and 58, only a wild card for them. I don't think they can catch Detroit. The Twins punted, so they're done. So are the White Sox, although the White Sox actually not playing horrific like they did last year. So I guess the question is, can Cleveland catch Detroit in the division? And are you concerned at all? The Tigers were the favorites to win the World Series, if you remember, for most of the season. Do you think that's still the case?
I would say not concerned about the Guardians catching the Tigers, making up that gap. But if you are a Tigers backer, there's reason to be concerned. And the pitching staff has dealt with a ton of injuries. Obviously, they go out, they get Charlie Morton, they get Chris Paddock. It's a good pitching staff. It's not great. Like Flaherty is certainly having a below average compared to his standards type of season. So when you can throw Skubal out there for game one, okay, we can chalk that up as a win. But after that, if Flaherty's not on his A game, what we're going to get from Charlie Morton? Chris Paddock has certainly had his struggles. I think it's okay where the Tigers are now because they have this room. They need to figure out the issues that they have offensively and pitching. But they need to get things going quickly because even if they maintain this 5-6 game lead, going into the first round of the playoffs is not going to be an easy task for them.
I agree. Now, Cleveland's upcoming schedule, pretty winnable here. I mean, the Marlins are playing much better, so that's not an easy win for them. Cleveland right now gets 3 games against the White Sox, 3 games against the Marlins, 3 games against the Braves, and 3 games against the Diamondbacks. All right, Reds and Pirates tonight. Let's get to this one. Pirates, of course, huge favorites in any game that Paul Skeens pitches. They're minus 180 tonight, total of 7.5. I would imagine that so many bettors are going to be on Skeens today. They kind of got to look for the other side and some sort of value here. But, Tom, as has been the story for most of the season, it's just simply not a guarantee that they're going to score runs behind them.
Right. There's a way to go about, like, you can back Skeens in terms of his strikeouts. You could also just say, I'm going to back the game under. I'm going to back the Pirates team total under. And again, as I always say, like, it is very, very possible that Skeens cruises through the first 5 innings. The Pirates' first 5 money line comes through as a win, but the Reds have been playing great as of late. They've, some good hitters, and if they can get to that Pirates bullpen, the Pirates may still lose the game, even though Skeens does 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, and 1 earned run. Right. The Reds come back and score. They got some nice power in that lineup, and before you know it, at plus 144, they still come through with the win.
Now, Skeens today, his total for strikeouts sits at 8+ at plus 104. 10 strikeouts is plus 360. He's pulled this off before. He's got to go 7 or 8 innings, I think, to get that, though, Tom. Do you like any of his props going into tonight against the Reds?
A part of me likes to back the outs rather than the strikeouts just because, the Reds, they're kind of a pesky team at the plate, in my opinion, where they don't strike out a super high rate. They can put the ball in play. They have enough power up and down the lineup. Steer, McLean, obviously with Elliott in there, Tyler Stevenson having a solid year. I would rather back the outs. And they'll just say, like, listen, Paul, you got to go out there and give us some length so we don't have to turn it over to the bullpen.
As far as the Cy Young is concerned, where do you think things stand right now? I mean, I do feel like I saw the note with Wheeler, and I guess at this point, maybe that's why the odds have shifted so much because of the shoulder issue that they pointed to. I mean, Skeens has never been this big of a favorite. It's been like minus 180, 200. I got to say right now, Tom, I can't back Wheeler without really knowing what his status is. I guess he's going to pitch Sunday, and we'll see.
Yeah, I was a big proponent of Wheeler, especially when his odds, where they were back in June. A couple rough starts for him combined with the shoulder injury. There's very, reasonable concern to say that they just, I don't want to say shut him down because I think that puts him in like a bit of a negative light, but they have greater tasks at hand in terms of the playoffs and the World Series. So if they scale back his innings or they just skip a start here or there as we get to September, that's just going to pour into the favor of Skeens, and then Wheeler will just be rested and ready to go for the playoffs, where I would assume, he wants to win a Cy Young just to have that on his mantle, but winning a World Series is more important.
Let's take a look at some of the matchups this weekend, Tom. You tell me which are your favorites here. Of course, the Astros play the Yankees. Astros are playing finally well again, and the Yankees only got a win, but they've been going the other way. Boston, San Diego is a real intriguing one, considering that both teams have postseason aspirations. Is this a preview of the World Series between the Jays and Dodgers? Cubs and Cardinals always fun. And Brewers seem to be unstoppable. Doesn't matter who they throw out there. They take on the Mets. What are you looking for this weekend?
Yeah, this is an awesome weekend where we have like the Yankees should be rooting for the Padres, the Mets should be rooting for the Red Sox, all these sorts of things. But the Blue Jays at the Dodgers, I believe we have Kershaw, Scherzer tomorrow night, if I saw the schedule correctly. Blue Jays coming off a series where they scored 1 million runs against the Rockies, surprise, surprise. But will that offense carry over? And can we see the Dodgers offense bring a level of consistency? Because at a certain point, if they can't keep up with the Blue Jays, I'm not saying the Blue Jays are going to score 20 runs every single game, but if they can get out there and get 5 or 6, can the Dodgers offense, which has been vastly up and down, can they keep up with the Blue Jays?
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, the team usually coming off 60 runs in a 3-game series. You want to get out of the way, but there's just no choice this weekend in Los Angeles, although they won't have to face Ohtani, who pitched yesterday. All right, great stuff as always, Tom. We'll catch you Sunday morning here on SportsGrid for Baseball Today. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Tom Vecchio here with us. Coming up next, Cody Rourke joins us. He's covering the Denver Broncos training camp for Mile High Sports. Broncos have a day off, so we asked Cody to come on the show next, talk about some of the odds, including the Super Bowl possibilities for the Denver Broncos. Is it that far-fetched? This is the shortest odds they've had in years. We'll be back with more NewsWire, talking NFL, right after this.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
He comes back, and what we're talking about, mid-August at that point, and then he gets a couple more starts and they're ready for the postseason. So right now, I would say probably not an issue long-term. You know, obviously change the lines of what we're going to see today. I haven't seen the lines reopen, at least on the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're locked right now, so not an issue right now. As long as he comes back and he still has that plant leg and he's still strong with that, probably no worries for the Brewers right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I'm going to say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though half their staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average 3 runs a game, but somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. How does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Time for the latest around the National Football League, and I'm sure that you saw this if you paid attention over the last couple of days. The NFL has decided to partner up with ESPN, including a stake in purchase of the company, and the National Football League is going to move their Red Zone channel over to ESPN. It's a groundbreaking deal which basically gives ESPN the right to air Red Zone coverage. Now, what that will look like and who will be hosting that still remains to be seen. But the commissioner of the National Football League, Roger Goodell, yesterday said that this could potentially lead to Red Zone for college football and even other sports. Now, needless to say, I could appreciate his comments, but has there been really anything stopping from college football from doing red zone coverage? I know Major League Baseball does what's called a whip around on MLB Network. I'm not sure if the National Hockey League does that, or how they certainly do it in the NBA. But yes, it would be interesting to see them do it in college football, although I think that would have to be from probably like 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm guessing, all the way through midnight Eastern. Do they have the bandwidth to do that? Can they find enough people to host those shows? I'm guessing they can, because it's football. All right, National Football League preseason week 1 officially begins tonight, a week after the Hall of Fame game. We've got 3 games on the schedule tonight and 3 games and point spreads to review. So let's take a look and bet at your own risk, I would say, in these games. We'll start off. The first game of 3 is the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Colts minus 5.5 points, and the total is 36.5. Trying to understand point spreads in preseason games is difficult, but I'll do my best. Tonight, it would appear that both Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones will get playing time in this game, and the Ravens are not really playing a lot of players. Let's also make sure that we know that the Ravens generally do very well in the preseason. In fact, I believe they had like a 15-game winning streak at some point before they lost last year. Richardson right now is still the heavy favorite to start after this preseason ends, but maybe tonight will have something to do with that, something to watch between Richardson and Jones's battle for starting quarterback. Jones is plus 255, Richardson minus 350, and Riley Leonard is 80-1, although Leonard could see time later in the season if all things go to you-know-what. Bengals take on the Eagles tonight. The defending Super Bowl champions play deeper into last season than anyone else. That usually means week 1 of the preseason, they don't play anyone. That's expected to be the case. The Bengals are expected to play some of their starters on offense, but Zach Taylor said many of his defensive starters will sit out. The total in this one tonight, a little bit higher than the last we just discussed, 37.5 as opposed to 36.5. Point spread exactly the same on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Bengals minus 5.5. Maybe the Bengals playing better in the preseason could lead to some less preseason struggles and regular season struggles, at least weeks 1 through 4. Bengals have always gotten off to these slow starts. We'll see what ends up happening tonight. Revenge game in tow tonight for Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. No word how much Geno Smith will play, but Pete Carroll will be on the sidelines from the beginning until the end of this one. We know that. It's a 10 p.m. Eastern game. The Las Vegas Raiders are 4.5-point favorites. The game is in Seattle. Total the same as the last, 37.5. So 3 games tonight, 2 of 37.5, 1 of 36.5. Seattle, of course, with Sam Darnold as their starting quarterback. He potentially will play tonight, maybe play a few downs or even a quarter, remains to be seen. Buffalo Bills play their first preseason game this week. They're not on schedule to play tonight, but they did make the announcement this morning. Sean McDermott says that Josh Allen will not play in the first NFL preseason game. Allen is expected to play in the second game and maybe even the third, but saying there's no reason essentially for him to play. So naturally the Buffalo Bills will go to Mitchell Trubisky to start their game this weekend. Also, Josh Allen with not playing in this one. Neither will Eric Armstead. The great player on the Jacksonville Jaguars has a sore back and will not play. Armstead's missed the past 3 practices. Liam Cohen says his back will hold him out of the preseason, maybe even into the regular season. The other piece of news that Cohen said is that Trevor Lawrence will play in week 1 of their NFL preseason game. So that's the latest in the National Football League. Now, we do have Major League Baseball games set to go off this afternoon, but the biggest one of all happened in Los Angeles yesterday as Shohei Ohtani ended up pitching for the Dodgers and ended up securing his 1,000th hit. It ended up, of course, being a home run as Shohei went deep in this one. He is the odds-on favorite to win the Most Valuable Player award, but it really didn't matter in the end because after Ohtani pitched 4 innings, 1 earned run, and 8 strikeouts, he came out of the game, and the Cardinals still hanging around in the playoff picture. They end up winning this one 5-3. After the game, Dave Roberts talked about the performance of Ohtani and just the struggles of the Dodgers since the All-Star break.
Shohei was really good today. The pitching, fastball, command, fantastic. Really impressive. Figured he would, come back and really throw the baseball well today, which he did. And then offensively, the walk, the homer, just really looked good. So, unfortunately, you got to play defense and you got to, have other guys, put together at bats and score runs too. But, as far as Shohei today, really good.
You have a level of frustration the way the second half has started off?
Yeah, we just haven't synced up. I think the pitching has been really good, and we just can't get on track, offensively. But having Max back, I think, is certainly helpful. But yeah, it's kind of we're not playing great. Expect to get better. But yeah, to start the second half, definitely not playing our best baseball.
Probably too late for the San Francisco Giants to catch the Dodgers, although they're still mathematically alive, of course, for the wild card and even the division as well. Dominic Smith with a big hit yesterday. Giants beat the Pirates by a final score of 4-2. Bob Melvin, of course, the manager of the Giants, was hoping for a better season and is sort of wondering after last night where that has been over the last couple of months.
Well, we talk about playing a little bit like we did earlier in the year, and that's the way we did early in the year off the good relievers, quality at bats. I mean, obviously Doms was huge. Bailey coming off the bench to get 2 hits, driving runs, and that's something that's obviously is a good recipe for us. So showed up again today. It's been lacking for a little while. Hopefully it continues.
What's changed with Bailey, do you think, at the plate?
I think he's just gotten some hits and feels more comfortable. I think you get to this point in time of the year, and if you're chasing numbers and, it's just play now. He expect to have better offensive numbers this year. His catching has gotten extreme as the year has gone along as far as the framing numbers and so forth. But the offensive numbers aren't where they are. But right now, he's just going up there taking good at-bats. He's had some success recently, and I think he's playing off that.
More NewsWire coming up after this quick timeout. Stay with us here on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
He comes back, and what we're talking about, mid-August at that point, and then he gets a couple more starts and they're ready for the postseason. So right now, I would say probably not an issue long-term. Obviously changes the lines of what we're going to see today. I haven't seen the lines reopen, at least on the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're locked right now. So not an issue right now. As long as he comes back and he still has that plant leg and he's still strong with that, probably no worries for the Brewers right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. Let's say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though half their staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average 3 runs a game, but somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. How does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
We got Cody Rourke in from Mile High Sports. Broncos have a day off, but we don't give Cody a day off. We bring him on here and do some extra work for us here on SportsGrid. Cody, great to have you back here on NewsWire. As Broncos certainly have changed the level of expectations, based on the second half of last season. It seems like going into this year, the bar has been raised, hasn't it?
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of it is returning a lot of the key guys from last year's roster. And look, it was a roster that not many people had high expectations for going into the season. It was around 5.5 wins. And Bo Nix was a big reason why they took a huge jump. And on top of that, a really good defense led by NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain. It's kind of elevated the stock a little bit. And so the expectations have gotten a little higher for the Broncos, who won 10 games last year. They believe, and I think a lot of people are seeing that this is a roster that could be very, very dangerous. And they're getting a lot of love from a national side going into it. But there's a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. And with that comes needing to meet those or to exceed those. But the Broncos, I think they tune out all the noise there. And, they got a big practice here this morning. They're not in Denver, but they are in San Francisco for a joint practice here this morning with the 49ers. So we're waiting updates on that one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the acquisitions this offseason. Which do you think was the biggest? Getting Dobbins from the Chargers, I'm assuming it's Trey Greenlaw, getting him from San Francisco, but they really dipped into the 49ers defense pretty hard here.
Yeah, I would say the additions of Talanoa Hufanga, Drake Greenlaw, those have been big ones. But I'd even say offensively, Evan Ingram, probably the one guy I would pinpoint is, hey, really keep an eye on him. J.K. Dobbins, obviously coming over from the Chargers. He's an upgrade over anything the Broncos had at running back last year. You have second-round pick R.J. Harvey. Those two guys have really been splitting the carries here with the first-team offense throughout training camp. Despite the unofficial depth chart that Sean Payton released yesterday, they had R.J. Harvey listed fifth. It was causing a lot of panic amongst people, especially the fantasy football community. But I think that Drake Greenlaw defensively, Hufanga, those guys are so important because they fly around him. You watch them on film, they are next to each other quite a bit. Anywhere the football is, those guys are right there. Offensively, Evan Ingram probably going to be the bigger needle mover right now, but J.K. Dobbins, he's also going to be a good addition. But I would highlight Evan Ingram probably is the most important addition that they have made so far this offseason.
I wouldn't have guessed that, so that's a good name going into the season. Cody, of course, over at MileHighSports.com has more on the unofficial depth chart that was released as the Broncos get ready to play their first preseason game. Let's talk about Bo Nix here for a minute. Shaky first few games, stellar second half of the season, and everyone is just expecting some of these numbers to just really rise astronomically this year, especially those rushing yards for him and the passing yards, 37-75 last year, 29 touchdowns. I mean, he was basically as good as any quarterback in the second half of the season, and I just wonder if that will continue this year.
Yeah, I think, there's hope and there's expectations of that being the case. Last year, learning Sean Payton's offense as a rookie is no easy task. And, for him, he managed that workload while in competition with guys like Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson, during training camp last year. And I think a lot of what we saw in camp last year from Bo was trying to learn the offense, but also trying not to put the ball into harm's way. He wanted to be able to protect the football there. You saw him get off to that slow start to start the regular season, learning how fast the NFL game is. And then all of a sudden something clicked for him and he goes on to explode for 29 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. He obviously surpassed Baker Mayfield for second all time by an NFL rookie quarterback in terms of passing touchdowns in a season, just a couple of shy from Justin Herbert. So he's in really, really good company in terms of what he's been able to accomplish. He's well in command of the offense right now and just looks miles ahead. He bulked up a little bit this offseason, so the expectations for him are high, and I think he's handling that transition knowing that he's the guy. I think he's handling it well.
Cody, let's end with the prognostications for the season. Most have the Raiders finishing last, and then I've seen things all over the place. Not many publications have the Chiefs finishing behind the Broncos, but I do see a lot with Denver finishing ahead of the Chargers this season. How do you see it all shaking out?
I mean, the AFC West, I think, is going to be very tough this year. I mean, obviously, with Pete Carroll coming over as the head coach for the Raiders, he's going to install a little bit more toughness and discipline that organization has lacked. He bring in a guy like Geno Smith and some of the younger guys that they have with Brock Bowers. They're going to be a tough team. They're not going to be a team you can write off. The Chargers, obviously, with Harbaugh, are very solid, and you can never write off the Chiefs that have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But I will say that I have a strong feeling this could be the year that the Chiefs don't win the AFC West. I think you can make a case for the Chargers. I think you can make a case for the Broncos, and I think that there's a good chance that we maybe see that. It starts with how they get off to start in the early season. Denver can't get off to a slow start the way they have the last 2 years. If they get off to a hot start, that trend could be in danger for Kansas City.
Great stuff as always, Cody. Enjoy the rest of the training camp, which ends today officially, right? And then the preseason begins this weekend. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right, Cody Work from MileHighSports.com. Our SportsGrid insider Adam Kaplan spends
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
And he comes back, and what we're talking about, mid-August at that point, and then he gets a couple more starts and they're ready for the postseason. So right now, I would say probably not an issue long-term. Obviously change the lines of what we're going to see today. I haven't seen the lines reopen, at least on the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're locked right now, so not an issue right now. As long as he comes back and he still has that plant leg and he's still strong with that, probably no worries for the Brewers right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. Let me say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though half their staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average 3 runs a game, but somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. How does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we got our SportsGrid insider Adam Kaplan here with us as training camps come to a close and the preseason begins. We got 3 games tonight and then the rest coming up this weekend. Let's bring in Adam. And great to see you, Adam. And I know you've been around, checking everybody out, so I'm sure we're going to dive into that as well. But let's start off with, game theory here a little bit, or I should say a preseason theory. When we grew up, Adam, it was just a rite of passage, 2-a-days and then 4 preseason games. And every preseason game meant a lot except for the last one. And man, things have changed so much. These joint practices mean more than the games. There's only 3 preseason games now, probably going to be 2 in the future. What do you make of all of these changes and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, Craig, it's funny you mentioned it that way because that's why I'm going to see 3 joint practices next week if everything holds up, particularly weather. It's because talking to coaches the last few years about this, and they love these joint practices. They get so much work done. They could take different looks. It's a little bit more physical. There's more urgency in these joint practices. And what they do almost always, not every time, but almost always, if you have a joint practice, you hold your starters out for that particular week. So that's part of it. Now, so let's go back to what you were talking about. So the way it used to work, when I started covering the league in the early 2000s and through about 4 or 5 years ago when the league went from 4 to 3 preseason games, the first preseason game, starters played a series or 2 or didn't play at all. The second week, they typically would play a quarter into the second quarter. Third game, it's called the dress rehearsal. They would play a half or into the third quarter. Some teams would actually play their starters into the fourth quarter and not play them, as you said, the fourth quarter. Then we went to 3 games. Now it's changed. Other than Sean McVay, who refuses to play their starters, and I get that, it's about getting your starters to the first game. But for the old schoolers like Andy Reid, I remember Andy telling me, I asked him because he's very consistent with this. When he was with the Eagles, the starters wouldn't play at all, or they play a series, or sometimes he would call it getting their feet on grass. They play one series or 1 play. It seemed ridiculous. But when he went to the Chiefs, particularly the last 4 to 5 years, he's changed his philosophy. He plays the starters. It really now, Craig, because whether you're wagering, you're playing daily fantasy in preseason. By the way, that is actually a thing. It sounds crazy, but coaches now will tell you they don't look at it the same way. The third game is not always the dress rehearsal. The third game now is when they rest starters. The second game could be the dress rehearsal if they don't have joint practices. And the first week, it depends on the team and depends on where you're at. Like, for instance, the Jaguars, they got to get Travis Hunter in the field. They're going to play their starters. But not every team looks at it that way. So if you're trying to get an advantage for betting purposes, You really have to look at what the coaches are willing to say and not say. That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I don't even know that that's even valid at this point because, again, we got 3 games tonight in the preseason. And, generally speaking, Adam, what I find unusual about these 3 games tonight, and I don't know if this is a trend to watch, is that usually somebody is 3-point favorites. I don't know who, but somebody. In these games tonight, I'm seeing 5s and 4s. Yep. So, I mean, let's dive in. Maybe you'll tell me what I'm missing here. We'll start off with Indianapolis and Baltimore. The team that's been the best in the NFL preseason over the last 5 years are the Ravens. And they're the ones getting all the points tonight. So either you buy the fact that 0 players are playing tonight on Baltimore and it doesn't matter, or you look at it and say, oh, the Colts are going to play their 2 quarterbacks. But, I mean, I don't even know that this is even such a great thing for bettors here. I'm not betting on the NFL preseason, but how can I possibly go against this insane trend with the Ravens winning or covering for like 5 years? I'm just going to like blindly predict that they either cover or win tonight. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is, if you really study rosters and depth charts, sometimes even if one of the best teams in the National Football League rests their starters, sometimes their backups are better than the other team's starters.
Right.
But that's a thing also. Now, Harbaugh's made it clear they're taking the same approach that they always have done, or mostly have done, where the starters aren't going to play. He was asked about Lamar Jackson, and he said, yeah, it's going to be the same trend. So typically, if you're not playing your starters on offense, you don't do it on defense, but every once in a while, we get tricked. Sometimes, like I know the Eagles have done this in the past, where if there's one side of the football where they need answers, and we'll talk about the Eagles in a minute because there's something interesting going on with that line. Sometimes you feel like if you're struggling with figuring out who the starters are on defense or one side of the football, you play those guys are competing for a starting job. By the way, that Eagles line, and you're looking at it, depending which book you look at, the Bengals are -6. Why? Zach Taylor made it clear. They're playing their starters. They don't want to get off to a bad start this season. He thinks they have to play their starters. Nick Sirianni didn't play any starters last year, except Mekhi Becton, who would wind up starting at right guard, played in 1 game, but none of the other 10 starters played on offense, and the defensive starters did not play at all. So if you look at that trend, you could certainly see why the Bengals are a big road favorite here. They should absolutely handle the Eagles' backups in the first and second quarter. Now, here's the question, though, Greg. How long are the Bengals starters going to play? They're going to play a quarter? They're going to play a half? That part right now is not clear.
Yeah, I like the backup quarterback for the Eagles. I got news for you. I think that guy is one of the best backups in the NFL. But I will say this, that the Eagles season ended in February and the Bengals season ended in December. And I think that that's a factor too. Those teams that go to the Super Bowl, they feel like they got to wait an extra week or two as well. All right, so I get that the Raiders are big favorites tonight against Seattle because of Pete Carroll. This can't certainly be because of Geno Smith, too. This guy's going to play like a quarter, I would guess, at the most. But is Pete Carroll really willing to sacrifice starters and play them deep into a game just to stick it to his old team? I don't buy that.
No, I don't see that at all. I mean, Rashad Genty, obviously, this is his debut, their first-round pick, and the offense is going to be built around him and the run game. That's what Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, their offensive coordinator, wants. And for Seattle, this is interesting. Clint Kubiak comes over. He's completely changed this offense. It's going to be like his dad's offense and Mike Shanahan's offense. Old school West Coast offense. Lots of 12 personnel. Because you remember last year, Smith and Jigba was unbelievable because they played a lot of 11 personnel. 3 receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end. That's changing here. Clint Kubiak got off to an unbelievable start with the Saints as their offensive play caller. And then Vic Fangio changed his scheme a little bit and shut them down in week 3 at New Orleans last year. And their offense was never the same. And the Saints had a lot of injuries. We need to mention that. But I'm excited about Clint Kubiak. And by the way, Sam Darnold played in this exact offense last year in Minnesota, did very, very well. In fact, he got himself a good free agent contract here because of that.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, so those are the 3 games today. Let's quickly get to the games tomorrow if we can. And I think one game over the others is going to be the most watched preseason game in the NFL. I'll get to that in a minute. Detroit-Atlanta is intriguing because, Ben Johnson is gone, and so the Lions have a new offensive coordinator. And, certainly with the Atlanta's quarterbacking situation, I don't know what they're going to do. Kirk Cousins, what an embarrassment for him, Adam. He's got to probably play a lot in this game, right?
Well, the thing is, look, Kirk's making a lot of money as a backup quarterback, over $30 million in total. And it is what it is. And we haven't got to the start of the season yet. I know they claim they're not going to trade him. We'll see about that.
I agree.
A lot of things would have to happen to be able to trade him. But Yeah, John Morton. Let's talk about this quickly here. John Morton is the new offensive coordinator. The last time he called plays for the Lions, by the way, he's a new OC for the Lions. He's been on their staff for a couple of years, so he knows Ben Johnson's offense. But he hasn't called plays since 2017, and that one was with the Jets. And it didn't go over that well, but he's more of a Sean Payton guy. He's a very smart guy. He called plays in college at USC. It's going to look a little different. And then on defense, Kelvin Shepard, you might remember as a linebacker for the Dolphins. He was a linebackers coach for the Lions. He's now a first-time play caller. It's going to look different for the Lions. There's no question about it. You can't imagine it's going to be as good. Atlanta, their problem is not on offense. They're going to be fine with Michael Penix as quarterback. The problem is their pass rush. And we've got the debuts of both first-round picks, Walker, the first-round edge rusher from Georgia, and staying in the SEC, James Pierce, who they traded up for. They need a pass rush, and they think they're going to get it this season in Atlanta.
Most watched preseason game has to be Shedeur Sanders' debut.
Oh, yeah.
He was the most talked about player not drafted in the NFL, right, Adam? It's got to be.
It is. There's no question. The word around the league was he should have gone in the third. Teams were concerned about how much he studied and all that. That stuff came out from not just me, from a lot of people. But he's very talented, and I'm interested to see how much of a start he can get off to. And the other thing is how many starters are going to play for Cleveland tonight. That's another question. We'll have to see about that tonight.
All right, we'll take a quick break. More previews, including Washington and New England. They also play tomorrow night. What we can expect from that one and more with our SportsGrid insider Adam Kaplan.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
It was already pretty solid up top, but you had the bottom that's that much better with Ryan O'Hearn and Lariano. Like, we now have a well-rounded lineup on top of a great pitching staff. Michael King is expected to start making his rehab starts. So you have him plus Pivetta plus Dylan Cease. You Darvish is back. You have the frontline pitching, the depth in the lineup, and now a great bullpen. You have it all.
I really like it. Like I do. Like sometimes I get caught up in the Padres because of what they can be.
Pro Baseball Today. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Final game for Adam and I to review for Friday night, and then we'll get into the massive games on Saturday. There's so many games. Washington, New England, Adam. I really don't have good intel or reading on this one as far as who's playing, who's in, and who's out. I guess I just haven't heard that much. I saw the joint practices and how many people were lined up to go see this thing, which is insane that people just want to watch practice. Yeah. But I'm going to guess the actual games are not going to feature a ton of starters, right?
Although Mike Vrabel said, to be honest with you, the starters will play, but here's the problem. He didn't give an indication. You can't go more than a quarter because there was only one joint practice, by the way. Not every team does two. But, yeah. Now, what Washington's going to do, they're going to play mostly backups. But one guy to look for, and by the way, fantasy alert here for Dynasty League people, Jalen Lane, 4th-round receiver from Virginia Tech, who's a dynamic slot receiver. Run after the catch. He's had a phenomenal camp. Really great offseason. He is really gifted. And obviously with McLaurin not practicing, he's getting a lot more of a look.
Right.
Now, the problem is without McLaurin, they're not very deep at the outside receiver position. But Jalen Lane is a stud talent. I'm telling you, this kid should have gone higher. But slot receivers, they don't go first or second round. But watch this kid. And I'm scheduled to visit the Commanders on Monday. I look forward to watching Jalen Lane.
Okay, we'll mark that name down from Adam Kaplan. All right, so Saturday night, if NFL preseason action is your thing, you got plenty of it. I know that you got to pick and choose some of these games here. Now, Giants play the Bills. Bills have made it clear, Sean McDermott, no Josh Allen for this game. Okay, so now everyone tunes out if you're a Bills fan. But if you are an NFL fan or a Giants fan, you definitely want to see what's going on with their quarterbacking situation, which, by the way, I hate this year. This would be terrible for me. Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, who everybody loves because he's Jameis Winston, but the dude is just not very good at this stage of his career. But, hey, I mean, it should be a fun game to watch. I would think some points could be in play here.
Yeah, and by the way, though, yes, obviously James Cook isn't playing. He has his hold in. You mentioned Josh Allen, but Sean McDermott did say that some starters will play. So the other problem is if you're trying to wager on this game, you don't know how long the starter is going to play. That's the toughest thing. But for the Giants, the story is not just their quarterback position, it's their defense, which, by the way, if you look at their front seven, they're enormously talented. The defense has a chance under Shane Bowen, Craig, to be a top 5 defense. Their front seven is about as good as anyone's on a talent level. The secondary's got some issues at corner. But I'm excited about their defense. I look forward to seeing the Giants and Jets next week in a joint practice. But the bottom line is, in this game, it's going to look a little odd at quarterback. There's no question about it. But Drake May, everybody knows how much of a stud he was. For New England, he was a big surprise last season. When you look at this game with the Bills and the Giants, the quarterback position for the Giants is one that's in flux here because Russell Wilson is not the same guy. By the way, he had some good games, talking to the Steelers about him. He had some games where they thought, wow, he's got something left, but man, did he crash and burn late in the season. And that's why here you can't think he's going to start more than half of the season this year for the Giants.
No, can't do that. And, I think Dart you'll see eventually there. All right, so Houston, a pretty good team that no one will ever talk about. So whoever they're playing is usually who we discuss, and that'll be the case again on Saturday night. J.J. McCarthy, we'll see him for the first time. And like Sanders to a degree, I think that, I don't think that McCarthy, by the way, is must watch, but I think the intrigue level is very high for that one.
Oh, it is, and they're super talented offense. And by the way, McCarthy, I know most people don't know this, he looked outstanding in the game that he got hurt. He played only in the first preseason game at home against the Raiders. And the thing about that game was the Raiders, they got a lot of pressure on him. He stepped up. He did some things that he didn't really do on tape at Michigan. At Michigan, he was more of a bailer. I mean, he would bail out of the pocket, not let the play develop. But Kevin O'Connor, their head coach who calls the plays, he's done a phenomenal job there of not only play calling, design, and coaching. And Kevin, obviously a former quarterback who was a third rounder for the Patriots, he knows how to coach quarterbacks. He's done a great job there. McCarthy, folks have to be patient. As you said, he only played the one preseason game. And all he could do was get medal reps last year on injury reserve. But things are coming fast here for this guy. And again, they're loaded, but they're not going to have Jordan Addison, unfortunately, their number 2 receiver for his suspension for 3 games.
Right. Preseason action, again, in Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, is going to lack the intrigue of seeing Aaron Rodgers play. So we'll have to wait. I'm going to guess, I think he'll play that second game. I thought that some of the comments from Liam Cohen were interesting. He seemed like pretty fired up to play everybody in this game coming up on Saturday. At least that's what it sounded like to me, is that everybody's going to play for the Jaguars. Like, he left no stone unturned.
Yeah, and this one, we got to talk about Travis Hunter. He made it clear Hunter's going to play a little bit on both sides of the football in this game. There's a belief around the league, though, long term, it may happen just this season. It'll play both sides of the football. That's what they're leaning towards doing. Long term, there's no way this could continue. A couple reasons why. It's the mental challenge of asking a player to play on both sides of the football every week. Coaches have to know how many plays or how long they're going to have him. Because if he's going to be a starting corners, Craig, typically do not rotate. all they do is they may take a couple plays off to get rested. But long term, this is unsustainable. There's no way it's going to happen. He's going to play on both sides of the football his entire career. Now, you can do a changeup at receiver. Now, the most value is a cornerback. Cornerback is a more value position. But this year, let's all watch. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to give you the reality from talking to NFL people. Long term, this is not going to work. Short term, this is their plan to play on both sides of the football. And it starts versus those Steelers on Saturday.
Let's end with Cowboys, Rams. Cowboys, of course, train in California, so this does make a lot of sense for the first game. Micah Parsons still not there. Jerry Jones talking every day. That's concerning. I'll tell you what's more concerning. I'm not buying that Stafford's going to be ready, Adam, for the first game of the season. He's had these issues before. They're saying the right things here, but we've seen him miss games with this, like at the last minute. I can't trust those injury reports.
Yeah, well, okay, he had an epidural. That it doesn't happen overnight. When you have an epidural, that takes weeks. They're convinced he'll be ready. This is the protocol for it. But yeah, this does worry me a little bit. And obviously, they have a good backup, Jimmy Garoppolo, who, by the way, has his own injury history. But the bottom line is, this is concerning. You're absolutely right to bring that up, and you can't say for sure because it's a back injury. And by the way, he's had a history of playing through back problems in his past.
Yeah, I added Jimmy Garoppolo in my dynasty league as a backup, just in case if I need a second quarterback league, 2 per week. Great stuff, Adam. Have a great trip this week. We'll catch up again next Thursday. Thanks again.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Was already pretty solid up top, but you had the bottom that's that much better with Ryan O'Hearn and Lariano. Like, we now have a well-rounded lineup on top of a great pitching staff. Michael King is expected to start making his rehab starts. So you have him plus Pavetta plus Dylan Cease. You Darvish is back. You have the frontline pitching, the depth in the lineup, and now a great bullpen. You have it all.
I really like it. Like I do. Like sometimes I get caught up in the Padres of what they can be.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple 18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we get ready to wrap up the show. A couple of notes from the National Football League, one on smelling salts. Yeah, we'll do that. Also, history will be made in Atlanta this weekend as well. It's time now for Last Licks. All right, Mike Vrabel back on a football field. Remember, he used to coach the Tennessee Titans several years, took the team pretty far, AFC Championship. Gotta say, he's a pretty good head coach, right? Probably fired unjustly, fair to say. Well, now he's back, and he's coaching the team that he used to play for with the New England Patriots. They have these joint practices. They're going against the Washington Commanders this week. And of course, every time the two teams, getting ready to play each other for the first time, they have a little skirmish. But would you believe the former player in the NFL who is, not 40 years old or I believe even 50 anymore, Mike Vrabel, jumped into the scrum of players at Wednesday's practice. And when he came out of it, he had a bloody cheek. You kidding me? No players were ejected from the practice. It was resolved pretty quickly. But there are very few coaches that you will see jump into the fray when there is a fight, and I guess Mike Vrabel is one of them. I think he may, by the way, have learned a lesson, too. I mean, this is probably the last time he's going to end up doing that. I want to see Coach get hurt before the first NFL preseason game. Got to stay out of those fights, Mike. All right, now, you may have heard about this or not, but for those of you who have watched football before, and you've noticed that when a player sometimes gets hit, and it's not a concussion, it's just a hard hit, you may notice either the player or maybe somebody on the staff will hand them something called smelling salts. And what happens is it just like wakes you up. Like they put it in front of your nose like that, and then all of a sudden you're like alive again, so to speak. So there was a league memo that was sent to clubs on Tuesday, and despite some confusion that was around, using the smelling salts during games is allowed this season, but you must bring your own. So what does that mean? Did you have to use the NFL's smelling salts of some kind? Very strange. The NFL Players Association sent a memo to the players Wednesday that indicated that the union wanted clarification on the league's ammonia ban, because that's really what it is, and received confirmation that it only applied to clubs providing ammonia to players. So, surprisingly, the National Football League has not found an advertiser for ammonia to give out to the players, because anything that kind of is you could put your name on or something and make a buck, the NFL is going to do it. But at least for the time being, they'll still be able to continue to use it, but you can't use somebody else's. Very bizarre and weird story as well. All right, the Atlanta Braves this weekend are back at Truist Park. They're, of course, out of the mix for the playoffs. They're probably out of the mix, I would guess, for the wild card, too. And they're going to play 5 games, because one game between Miami and Atlanta was rained out earlier in the season. And in one of the games coming up on Saturday, the big story here is that for the first time ever, and when I mean ever, I mean in the history of Major League Baseball, they're going to have a woman umpiring the game. Her name is Jen Powell, Pawol. She'll be the first woman to umpire a Major League Baseball game in the Saturday affair between the Miami Marlins and Atlanta Braves. She's, of course, umpired at the minor league level, at AAA, and other key games as well. Spring training, there you go. They showed the spring training games that she's umpired as well. So for the first time ever, get ready. Saturday history will be made on Truist Field in Atlanta in Major League Baseball. Our first woman umpire ever, basically on the field. Pretty cool. Congrats to her. All right, congrats to us. We have reached the end of the line for today's NewsWire show here on SportsGrid. Man, do we have some good guests here on the show today. Adam Kaplan was on the program. Want to thank Adam for appearing on our show. In addition, Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, Tom Vecchio talking baseball from Pro Baseball Today, and also thanks to Cody Rourke from Mile High Sports. If you're interested in our full schedule and all of our hosts and everything going on here at SportsGrid, you can download the SportsGrid app just by taking out your phone and scanning this QR code. In fact, the SportsGrid app is free and streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't need to be on any other network because we're streaming for free. So nobody should be complaining about this, whether it's radio or TV. We remain live, we remain absolutely free, and you don't have to pay. So what could be better than that? Just download the SportsGrid app, and you're all set, okay? No more complaining. We're good. Thanks again to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the NFL preseason games tonight. I'm going to try and tune in to 10 minutes of an NFL preseason game. I know I got baseball to watch here. I'm gonna say 10 minutes of my time is dedicated to the NFL preseason, because I got to watch Shedeur Sanders tomorrow night. I'm definitely going to want to do that. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you back here tomorrow at noon Eastern for our next edition of NewsWire. See you then.